This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
We're working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands. Working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus. We're coming to you live from Manila and Bangkok. Hello, Gila.
Hello, good afternoon, Alma, and good afternoon to all our viewers. I'm Gila Pablo, bringing you the news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines, Thai police fired tear gas and rubber bullets at hundreds of protesters in Bangkok, demanding political reform and calling for a change to the country's coronavirus vaccination program.
U.S. prosecutors said Friday they had charged 2 Myanmar citizens in a plot to attack the country's UN ambassador Kyaw Mu-Pan, an outspoken supporter of the democracy movement who has refused junta orders to quit.
And President Duterte is confident the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, will be able to win its fight against COVID-19 just as it hurdled various challenges in the past.
Happy ASEAN Day.
Today, ASEAN marks its 54th anniversary. As the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic continues, the observation and commemoration of this year's ASEAN Day was once again held online.
This event
First to Thailand, where police fired tear gas and rubber bullets at hundreds of protesters in Bangkok, demanding political reform and calling for a change to the country's coronavirus vaccination program. Demonstrators defied restrictions on public gatherings introduced as Thailand battles its worst outbreak of the virus to call for Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha to quit. Take a look.
ใส่กรอบมันจุกๆครับอันนี้มันใส่กรอบนะแต่ถ้าไม่ได้ใส่กรอบจะเป็นแผลเต็มเลยแต่ความรู้สึกแรกที่โดนคือแบบเหมือนแบบมันจุกอะ
ไม่เกินความคาดหมายของเราเพราะเรารู้อยู่แล้วว่าเจ้าหน้าที่ตำรวจพยายามใช้ความรุนแรงนะคะแต่สิ่งที่เราพยายามมุ่งเน้นกับความชัดเจนที่ว่าให้อยู่ในเส้นของสันติวิธีนะคะ
Now, the Thai government has come under fire for the sluggish rollout of its COVID vaccination program. And the protesters also demanded it started using mRNA shots such as Pfizer and Moderna rather than China's Sinovac. The 500 or so protesters were vastly outnumbered by police, who said on Friday they plan to deploy nearly 6,000 officers to tackle this rally. A youth-led street protest movement for democracy rose up last year and at its peak drew tens of thousands to rallies in Bangkok. The demonstrators called for the resignation of the Premier Prayut Chan-o-cha, the former army chief who came to power in a 2014 coup, as well as changes to the military scripted constitution. But the most shocking calls were for changes to the monarchy, a long-revered institution in Thailand protected by some of the world's toughest lay majesty laws. A COVID spike and the arrest of key leaders saw the protests peter out over the new year, and they have struggled to regain the momentum of 2020.
Malaysia will ease coronavirus curbs for fully vaccinated people in states comprising about half the country, its premier said Sunday. The move, which takes effect from Tuesday, will allow millions to cross district borders, play individual outdoor sports, and eat in restaurants in 8 states where cases have fallen and vaccination rates are promising. A lockdown since June has shut down thousands of businesses and limited most people's travel to the districts where they lived. Those sectors of the economy have gradually been allowed to open. I quote, more people are receiving complete vaccinations. The burden on the public health system will reduce. End of quote. That's according to Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin said in a televised speech. He added more economic and social sectors can be opened up in stages, and we can get out of this pandemic in a more orderly and safely manner. The curbs will not be lifted in states such as the capital Kuala Lumpur, which is recording thousands of new infections every day, and commercial heartland of Selangor. But the government also announced easing restrictions for double-jabbed residents regardless of their state, such as home quarantine for 14 days upon return to the country and an allowance for married couples to cross state lines to meet their spouses.
From Malaysia, we go to Brunei. The country imposed strict curbs to halt the spread of COVID-19 after finding its first locally transmitted cases in the country in over a year. 7 community infections were found, according to the Health Ministry, leading the government to close all places of worship and postpone social events for 2 weeks. Mass events were also limited to groups of 30 people over this period, as school classes were moved online and restaurants barred from serving dine-in. The tiny Islamic Sultanate has largely remained coronavirus-free, logging only 3 deaths since the pandemic began. More than half of its 347 infections so far were imported, with tight border controls and quarantine measures keeping the virus's spread in check. 5 of the oil-rich nation's first local infections since May last year were linked to a government-run virus monitoring center. Now, this cluster is believed to likely have been imposed to one of the imported cases in Brunei, according to the ministry in a statement. The source of infection for the other 2 could not be identified. An imported case was also announced Saturday, a man who arrived from the Middle East via Malaysia on July 30 before experiencing symptoms on Tuesday. Brunei has been spared the serious coronavirus outbreaks that currently overwhelm health systems in much of the Southeast Asia today. It shares its only land border with Malaysia, which has so far recorded nearly 1.25 million infections and more than 10,000 deaths. The country has also been steadily ramping up its vaccination process, with nearly 32% of its 450,000 people getting at least 1 jab.
Victims of domestic violence, particularly women and children, during the enhanced community quarantine are urged to lodge complaints through the Philippine National Police or PNP e-Sumbong platform. PNP Chief General Guillermo Elazar has ordered the police force to ensure that incidents of child abuse and violence against women are kept to a minimum during the ECQ following a spike of such incidents last year. Elazar said domestic violence is a complicated issue since it happens inside homes that are off limits to police. I quote, we created several ways to address this, including e-Sumbong, where we make it easier for our fellow Filipinos to ask for help and complain. The Facebook platform itself is available for police intervention, according to Elazar in a statement last Monday. He urged the public to report incidents of domestic violence to the police through PNP's social media accounts.
Meanwhile, the Philippines reported more than 11,000 cases of coronavirus disease on Saturday. This was the highest reported so far this August, and the Department of Health said this. Now, this puts the total number of infections at 1.649 million, 76,063 of which are active. Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergeire warned that the highly infectious Delta variant will push cases even higher in this country. Take a look.
Yes po, Yusek Rocky, no? So nakikita na po natin sumisipa na ang mga kaso. Tumataas na po ang kaso, nararamdaman na po natin ang epekto ng Delta variant dito po sa ating bansa. At amin pong nakikita, based also on projections, natataas pa rin po ang mga kasong ito. Ito pong ginagawa natin ngayong paghihigpit ng mga quarantine restrictions or classifications ay ang ating adhikain dyan is to delay further increase, pero hindi niyan patitigilin. Tutuloy pa rin ang pagtaas, pero ang atin pong ginagawa ngayon is to prepare our system for this continuous increase in the number of cases. We had been hammering on the different response processes na ginagawa natin sa ngayon. We are now expanding beds in the different facilities across the country. Pinadadagdagan po natin ang mga ICU, pinapadecongest natin ang mga ospital dito sa mga mild at asymptomatic at ililipat po sila sa mga step-down facilities. Hindi naman po para tanggihan ng kahit na sinong pasyente sa ating mga ospital, i-redirect lang po sila. That's why we are asking local governments and also our hospital facilities to have a navigation system para po natin na i-refer sa appropriate facility ang ating mga pasyente at malaman ng mga pasyenteng mild and asymptomatic that they can also be taken care of in our lower facilities, hindi na kailangan sa mga matataas na ospital. Wala, katulad ng lagi naming sinasabi, Yusek Rocky, mula nung umpisa, bagamat hindi pa natin ma-officially declare na may community transmission sa ating bansa, we are now acting as if there is really community transmission. Dahil nakikita na ho natin yung epekto na mabilis na tumataas sa mga kaso. Nakikita rin po natin na hindi na lang po sa isang parte ng bansa, ngunit maraming parte na po ng bansa. So we are now actioning or giving actions as if there is already community transmission.
Persons whose travel purpose is for health and medical reasons are allowed to cross border control points in Metro Manila, Philippine National Chief Guillermo Elizar said Sunday. Elizar said these persons are classified as authorized persons outside residence or APORs. APORs are generally classified into two main groups: the worker APOR, who are allowed to go out and cross borders for being an employee of businesses and industries permitted under the Enhanced Community Quarantine or ECQ, and the customer APOR, who are allowed to go out and avail of the goods and services of the businesses and permitted industries but are prohibited to crossing borders. Crossing borders for persons requiring emergency treatment would always be allowed, especially if the condition cannot be treated within the locality due to the unavailability of medical facilities. Police personnel manning quarantine control points have been advised to allow persons under the other APOR category to cross borders, Elizar said. He reminded the public to continue observing the quarantine rules, especially on unnecessary travels.
Air and sea travel going to Surigao del Norte will be suspended for 2 weeks from August 11 until the 22nd to protect residents from the coronavirus disease and the Delta variant. Governor Francisco Matugas issued Executive Order number 21029 Saturday following the detection of Delta variants in 9 regions, including the National Capital Region. Air and sea travel of passengers for Surigao del Norte from Luzon and the Visayas are suspended during the specified period, except for the domestic air and sea travels of cargoes. Authorized persons outside residence or APORs are not covered in the suspension of travels, but they are subjected to mandatory travel protocols at the airports and seaports. Under the EO, the APORs include health workers on official business, government officials, returning overseas Filipino workers, and bank personnel tasked to replenish cash. Persons traveling for health and humanitarian reasons, including returning residents of the province and those who are providing basic services, public utilities, and other essential services, are also exempted from the temporary suspension of travels. And the news continues here on Eagle News. Gila and I will be back right after this break.
factual.
We have to defeat the virus everywhere.
Timely information. Balanced, not only in the country, but also abroad.
I'm certain of one thing.
Interviews that people need to know. Watch Agila Pilipinas! A one-hour newscast of reports coming from regional hubs in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Know the important updates in Asia in ASEAN in Focus. Track the latest stories in the provinces in Agila Probinsya. Tune into Mata ng Agila, the evening primetime news program of Net25. Balanced and objective, Mata ng Agila covers national and international issues, tackles news on business, health, science and technology, entertainment, sports and human interest features, and current events. And Eagle News International delivers the latest global reports, impartial, accessible, and up-to-date. It brings to fore EBC's rich international scope and access to valuable information streams.
Well, thank you to explain our health outdoor.
Catch these programs on Net25. You can also watch our news programs through eaglenews.ph and Eagle News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Welcome back to ASEAN in Focus. A suspect in the death of a 57-year-old Swiss woman on Thailand's tourist island of Phuket was charged with murder and robbery. Here's EBC Thailand correspondent Ian Salada for more report. Ian?
Hi, Jella. Yes, that's correct. The suspect for slaying a Swiss tourist in Phuket, Thailand was arrested on Saturday, 7 August, and police have filed murder and robbery charges against him. In the press conference at the Phuket Provincial Police Head Office on Sunday, the Phuket native confessed the killing and robbing of 57-year-old Swiss national who was a deputy protocol chief of the Federal Assembly of Switzerland in Ton Au Yon waterfall in Wang district on Tuesday. Police have witnessed to attest the charges according to Police Major General Nan Tadet Yuinwan, Deputy Chief of Provincial Police Region 8. The suspect, Mr. Tiwarat, is unemployed and wanted the victim's money to buy illicit drugs, according to Pol Maj General Nan Tadet. Angela, the CCTV footage captured the suspect in a motorcycle to the waterfalls to pick wild orchids to sell. He saw the tourist swimming from the top tier of the waterfall. He then went to the pool beneath the waterfall where the tourist was sitting by the bank with a black backpack on her side. The suspect searched the backpack where he found 300 baht, approximately $9. And when the victim resisted, the suspect strangled her. The suspect confessed that he covered the body with a black sheet, threw her sneakers into the forest, and hid her backpack before leaving the crime scene. And police took the suspect in the crime scene for reenactments. At the entrance where his motorcycle was parked, at the top of the waterfall, and the place where he killed the victim. An apology and condolence to the victim's family was offered by the National Police Chief Pol General Suwat Chang Yudsuk. Back to you, Jila.
Thank you so much, Ian, for that news. You stay safe and healthy.
Thank you, Jila. You too. Reporting live from Phuket, Thailand, this is Ian Silada. We live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, in another news, U.S. prosecutors said Friday they had charged 2 Myanmar citizens in a plot to attack the country's UN ambassador Kwa Mu Than, an outspoken supporter of the democracy movement who has refused junta orders to quit. In an alleged conspiracy foiled by U.S. investigators, the pair spoke of hiring hitmen who would force Kwa Mu Than to resign or if he refused to kill him, officials said. The pair plotted to seriously injure or kill Myanmar's ambassador to the United Nations in a planned attack on a foreign official that was to take place on American soil, said Audrey Sprouse, the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York. Jacqueline McGuire, the acting assistant director of the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation, said law enforcement acted quickly and diligently after learning of the potential assassination that was planned in Westchester County, a suburban area north of New York City where the ambassador lives. The Bureau received a tip-off on Tuesday, according to court documents. I quote, "Our laws apply to everyone in our country, and these men will now face the consequences of allegedly breaking those laws," according to McGuire in a statement. Suspects Bu Hin Tat, 28, and Yi Hin Zo, 20, were being charged in a federal court in Westchester on counts for which they could be sentenced to up to 5 years in prison.
The World Food Programme warned that it is facing a 70% funding shortfall in Myanmar, where millions face growing food insecurity. Take a look.
We started with the people of Myanmar are going through their most difficult time in memory. They've been faced with multiple challenges, multiple shocks. First of all, poverty. Of course, poverty predated the current situation, and then of course, since the 1 February military takeover, there's been increased political unrest, as also an economic crisis. COVID-19, we had a very tough second wave last year, which had a devastating impact on people's livelihoods. And now the third wave it's practically like a tsunami that's hit this country. It's hitting all aspects and creating major havoc. The WFP has tried to launch a large-scale assistance to people who we believe are in very high need. In critical need in urban areas, in the poorest parts of the urban. And we started in Yangon, and we've assisted approximately 750,000 people so far. But we believe that about 2 million people should be targeted with emergency food assistance. And really, to really sum it up, we do need the support and attention of the international community now more than ever.
Now, in April, the UN agency estimated that the number of people facing hunger could more than double to 6.2 million in the next 6 months, up from 2.8 million prior to February. Subsequent monitoring surveys carried out by WFP have shown that since February, more and more families are being pushed to the edge, struggling to put even the most basic food on the table. WFP said a major wave of COVID infections is surging through Myanmar, compounding hunger, rising food and fuel prices, political unrest, violence, and displacement. Myanmar has been in chaos and its economy paralyzed since the military seized power from civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi on February 1.
A special envoy to Myanmar appointed by Southeast Asia's regional bloc to help resolve the coup-hit country's political crisis called Saturday for full access to all parties when he visits. Brunei's second foreign minister, Erywan Yusof, was named to the role this week by the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, after months of internal wrangling. Member state Myanmar has been in chaos since the military junta ousted Aung San Suu Kyi's government in February, accusing it of fraud during 2020 elections. The coup sparked mass protests, and more than 900 people have since been killed in a brutal crackdown on dissent, according to a local monitoring group. Yusuf told reporters in Bandar Seri Begawan, the capital of the Sultanate on Borneo Island, that his first visit as a special envoy to Myanmar was in the pipeline but did not give a date. He has already made one trip to Myanmar for ASEAN since the coup on June 4, where he met with junta chief Min Aung Hlaing. But he said his next visit would see more substantive discussions on issues including cessation of violence, dialogue, and mediation. He also stressed the importance for the special envoy to be given full access to all parties concerned in Myanmar in order for meaningful progress to be made.
From Myanmar, we go back to the coronavirus situation, this time in Vietnam. The Department of Immigration has issued a notice on automatic extension of stay extension for foreigners stranded due to COVID-19. It said accordingly, foreigners who entered Vietnam on visa waivers, e-visas or tourist visas from March 1st last year are entitled to automatic stay extension until August 31 this year and can depart from Vietnam without having to apply for stay extension. For those who entered Vietnam before March 1st last year, the same automatic stay extension until August 31st can be considered subject to provision of proof that the person was stranded in Vietnam due to COVID-19, accompanied by a diplomatic note with Vietnamese translation from relevant diplomatic missions, or a written document from relevant Vietnamese authorities confirming that the person was required to undergo mandatory quarantine or treatment for COVID-19 or advice of other force majeure. The person is required to present the diplomatic note or written document on departure from Vietnam. During automatic stay extension period, foreigners shall be required to complete temporary residence and health status declaration. Foreigners who are not subject to paragraph 1 or violate Vietnamese laws will be treated according to applicable laws of Vietnam.
Meanwhile, a Malaysian student activist who sparked a social media campaign after chastising her teacher for joking about rape in class is being investigated by police for breaching the peace. Ain Husniza Saiful Nizam, 17, posted a video on TikTok in April complaining about the conduct of her teacher, who in return sued the girl and her parents for 1 million ringgit, equivalent to $236,938 US. Let's watch this.
I was very scared, as much as a 17-year-old would feel during these moments, because here I just want to tell you all what I want is really safety in schools, nothing more. I don't mean to insult any parties, I don't mean to defame, I don't mean to degrade any certain teachers or parties. I just want schools to be safe. That the police were professional, and me and my father will be cooperative towards the investigation. I really hope to see the result of the case. Thank you.
To you, intentional insult with intent to provoke breach of peace. Okay? Okay, not a very...
Taking her to this level, I think that it is really sending a very bad message that, you can't talk about rape, you have to accept what the teachers say, and that the whole educational system actually accepts jokes on rapes.
We do in front of the gate, so the reporters... Yeah, come. Okay.
Civil society groups say physical and verbal harassment is a problem in Malaysian schools. Since Ain's case came to light, thousands of youngsters have shared stories of abuse online. Ain's viral TikTok video, which has been viewed more than 1.9 million times, showed her expressing shock at her teacher for jokingly telling students to target people aged above 18 if they wanted to rape someone. The clip kicked off a massive social media campaign that prompted police to investigate the teacher, who was transferred out of the school. But that investigation was later dropped, local media reported this week. Ames lawyer Sankara Nair said police were investigating the girl over a possible charge of intentional insult with an intent to provoke a breach of the peace. If found guilty, she could face up to 2 years in jail or a fine or both. Don't go away. Alma and I will be back after these short messages.
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Your weekly dose of entrepreneurial inspiration to update you on the latest developments in the world of business. Get up close and personal with CEOs and thought leaders to help you discover valuable insights. Sharpen your instincts for smart decision-making with the latest markets and economic trends, disruptive ideas, global innovation, social entrepreneurship, and other leading-edge business ideas. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business, from vision to action.
Iba't ibang sakuna at kalamidad ang nararanasan ng bansa. Kapag may banta ng panganib, kailangang maging alerto at kung kailangang lumikas ay magtungo sa ligtas na lugar. Bilang paghahanda sa mga ganitong pagkakataon, mahalaga na may gobag na dadalhin ang pamilya. Narito ang dapat na nilalaman ng gobag ng isang pamilyang handa. Mahalagang dokumento sa selyadong lalagyan, flashlight, kandila, posporo at silbato, radyo na may bago at ekstrang baterya, first aid kit kasama ang panlunas sa lagnat, LBM, sugat at iba pa. Ang mga gamot na regular na iniinom ng pamilya. Mga gamit para sa mga sanggol, bata, matatanda at may kapansanan. Pera at mga barya. Pagkain na madaling ihanda, di na kailangang lutuin at sapat para sa 3 araw. Inuming tubig sa saradong lalagyan at sapat para sa 3 araw. Telepono, power bank at charger. Lubid, lumang dyaryo, matitibay na lalagyan, damit, kapote, bota at mga sanitary supplies, sleeping bag o banig at mga kumot. Suriin ang mga laman ng gobag kada 3 buwan at palitan ang mga laman nito na malapit nang masira. Ilagay ang gobag sa lugar na madali itong makita at makuha sa oras ng sakunan.
Welcome back. The average rate of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas 28-day securities fell on Friday due to strong demand. Data released by the central bank show that the rate of the debt paper slipped to 1.7619% from last week's 1.7769%. The BSP offered it again for 100 billion pesos, which was fully awarded. Bids reached 165.88 billion pesos. This week's bid coverage ratio stood at 1.6588. BSP Deputy Governor Francisco Daquila Jr. has repeatedly said the domestic liquidity condition in the financial system remains normal amid the pandemic.
Indonesia's economy bounced back in the second quarter to post its first growth in more than a year. But analysts warn the recovery might be short-lived as COVID-19 surges. Southeast Asia's largest economy grew by 7.07% in the April to June quarter compared with the same period last year, the Central Statistics Agency or BPS said Thursday. The figure is higher than a projection by the Central Bank of Indonesia, which predicted growth of 6.75%. The expansion, the first positive figure in 5 quarters, was driven by a pickup in exports and imports as Indonesia's trading partners also saw greater activity. BPS head Margo Yumono told a press conference that For the economy to keep growing, the key is how we manage the health sector, comply with health protocols, and vaccinate people to reach herd immunity. Domestic consumption also contributed to the comeback, with motorcycle and car sales jumping 2.5 and 7.5% respectively compared with the first quarter. Numono said greater business activity and more public mobility as a result of pandemic restrictions being relaxed also contributed to the recovery. But analysts believe Indonesia will struggle to record continued growth as a virus surge triggered by the Delta variant racks the country. ICOD Indonesia's economy is struggling badly, with Q2 GDP data showing that the recovery lost some momentum even before the latest surge in virus cases. End of quote, according to Garrett Leather, a senior Asia economist for Capital Economics, said in a statement. The archipelago has reported more than 3.5 million infections and over 100,000 deaths from COVID-19, through official figures are widely believed to be an underestimate.
Meanwhile, Indonesian online marketplace Bukalapak netted a national record initial public offering, or IPO, on Friday after raising more than $1.5 billion on the Jakarta exchange. The e-commerce platform was founded in 2010 by a trio of college friends and has since grown to be the country's fourth largest tech company. Bukalapak claims it has over 100 million active users, more than 1 in every 3 people across the sprawling Southeast Asian archipelago nation. Shares in the firm jumped by nearly 25% from the open in Friday trade, marking what Indonesian stock exchange Inarno Jajadi said was the most lucrative debut listing in the Bursa's history. Still, loss-making Bukalapak is expected to turn profitable within 3 years, according to company president Teddy Oyetomo, and he told this to Bloomberg TV. Its listing was watched closely by investors as other Indonesian tech firms prepare to go public, including regional ride-hailing giant Gojek and travel services app Traveloka. And we have more updates for you here in the ASEAN region. Gila and I will be back right after this break.
Hey there, Arnie Aquino here at Hatley Castle, one of the filming locations for the X-Men series. Don't forget to tune in to Digital Nest only on Net25.
Impormasyong mahalaga sa taong bayan. Patas na pagbabalita. Papakinggan ang magkabilang panig. Lilinawin ang mga issue at kaagad na ihahatid ng objektibo. Mata ng Agila. Tumadagit ng pinakasariwang pangyayari, hindi lamang sa loob ng bansa, kundi sa iba't ibang panig ng daigdig. Mula sa Eagle News teams at sa tulong ng makabagong teknolohiya, tiyak na makakalap kaagad ang katotohanan. Para sa mas matalas, malinaw at malalimang pagbabalita. Ito ang mas pinatalas na Mata ng Agila. Inihahatid ng veteranong broadcast journalist na si Eli Saludar. Kasama si Binibining Pilipinas Intercontinental 2019, Emma Tiglao. At pinangungunahan ng batikang mamamahayag ng bansa, Vic De Leon Lima. Mata ng Agila, Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 6 hanggang alas 8 ng gabi, dito sa Net25.
Welcome back. President Duterte is confident that the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, will be able to win its fight against COVID-19 just as it hurdled various challenges in the past. The president made this remark as ASEAN commemorates its 54th founding anniversary. ASEAN member states, he said, are no longer stranger to difficult times, noting that their bonds of amity and solidarity have always pulled the regional bloc through. Notwithstanding the difficulties we face as the COVID-19 pandemic enters its second year, I am confident that ASEAN will prevail as it has done so many times in the past, he said in an official statement on Sunday night. He also said he had no doubts that ASEAN member states would be able to overcome the problems they are currently facing. ASEAN will continue to rise to present challenges and lead the region with renewed sense of purpose and an even firmer commitment to the ideals of peace, freedom, and prosperity, he added. He emphasized the importance of working hand in hand to reach their shared goals. He said, as we celebrate our collective achievements and reflect on how far we have come as one community, may we always remember and value how much stronger we are together than on our own, he said. President Duterte also recognized ASEAN as Southeast Asia's preeminent regional organization and one of the world's most successful institutions. The creation of ASEAN in 1967, in a period of great power, rivalry, and tensions, was indeed a bold, visionary step towards enduring peace and shared prosperity for the region, he said. ASEAN, he added, has gone a long way from when it was first created in 1967. With more than 5 decades of community building, ASEAN has come from strength to strength as the friendship and cooperation among its members deepened, he said. He also described ASEAN as an indispensable institution for the promotion and preservation of peace and security in the Asia-Pacific region.
Today, ASEAN marks its 54th anniversary. As the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic continues, the observation and commemoration of this year's ASEAN Day was once again held online. The Secretary General of ASEAN, Dato Lim Jok Hoi, opened the online ceremony with his welcome remarks. Let's watch this.
There are also new challenges, particularly in the face of emerging of new variants. The fight against pandemic, therefore, remains a regional priority and a prerequisite to a robust recovery. To this end, the ASEAN Comprehensive Recovery Framework and its implementation plan, adopted by the 37th ASEAN Summit last year, lays out ASEAN strategies through the various recovery stages and beyond, focusing on sector and segments of society that are most affected by the pandemic. One such strategy is by accelerating inclusive digital transformation. The pace of digital technology adoption and the prevalence of digital solutions in the region have picked up during the pandemic. This positive trend is expected to carry on into the new normal. To ensure that this transformation is inclusive, however, ASEAN must amplify effort in narrowing the digital divide in infrastructures, regulation, and skills.
Over the past 54 years, ASEAN has transformed Southeast Asia from a powder keg to a zone of peace, from a relatively poor region to a robust, growing one, from a fragmented group of countries to be a community with shared values and common vision. During the pandemic, ASEAN must continue to innovate, developing new and better mechanisms to strengthen our region's resilience. Recent surges of cases remind us to maintain ASEAN's spirits of solidarity and cooperation, which have been on full display since the beginning of the pandemic.
The online celebration was streamed on ASEAN social media channels. Along with the official speeches, heads or representatives of ASEAN centers and facilities conveyed their well wishes to ASEAN.
In the same keynote address, Foreign Minister for the Republic of Indonesia, Retno Marsudi, also urged ASEAN member states to assume an active role in shaping the regional dynamics and promote the principle and values enshrined in the ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific region. She urged ASEAN member states to assume this role. Again, let's listen in.
Indeed, the pandemic is hardly our only challenge. Regional peace and stability also demands our attention. Great power rivalries shows no sign of diminishing anytime soon and has the potential to show division among us. Rather than being a pawn of this new Cold War, ASEAN must be at the driving seat in shaping regional dynamics. We must promote principles and values enshrined in the ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific region to guide our countries in their engagement with our region. This means embracing dialogue over conflict, strategic trust over trust deficit, and collaboration over competition. At the same time, we must demonstrate the virtue of ASEAN centrality in addressing common challenges. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, concerns remains on the situation in Myanmar. Inclusive dialogue is urgently needed to bring democracy back on its path. Therefore, we urgently need visible progress in implementing the 5 points of consensus of ASEAN.
Separately, to further commemorate the 54th ASEAN Day, the ASEAN Secretariat, in collaboration with ASEAN member states, is hosting the second edition of the ASEAN Online Sale Day to connect e-marketplace companies to regional consumers. This event is part of ASEAN efforts to rebuild consumer confidence, leveraging on digital technologies towards a more robust recovery.
Consumers, happy ASEAN Day. It is my great pleasure to officially announce the launch of the second ASEAN Online Sales Day to be held from 8 to 10 August 2021. This event is one of our commemorative series to celebrate the 54th anniversary of ASEAN, enshrining our collective commitment to supporting the ASEAN economic integration through the promotion of e-commerce and beyond the establishment of an ASEAN digital economy. The COVID-19 pandemic triggered a new surge in e-commerce at an unprecedented rate in ASEAN. Businesses, no matter how big or small, especially micro, small, and medium enterprises, have been leveraging e-commerce to enable new business models, enhance consumer experiences, and reach out to a larger base of consumers in the region. For consumers, e-commerce is an effective and trusted means to access a considerable range of high-quality products and services at affordable prices online. For the ASEAN economic community, e-commerce is emerging as the leading force to entrench the ASEAN strategy towards digitalization. ASEAN is working intensively for early entry into the force of the ASEAN Agreement on e-commerce, making historical milestone on the pathway to the establishment of the ASEAN digital economy.
And finally, in our news, from a group of athletes struggling to take that elusive